I can still feel the weight of those whispers following me through the hallways of Westlake Preparatory Academy. There she goes, the janitor's daughter. The way they'd say it, like it was some kind of disease you could catch if you stood too close. For 4 years, I lived with that shadow trailing behind me. No matter how many advanced placement classes I took, or how many academic awards I won. To them, I was just Sophia Martinez, the girl whose mother cleaned up their messes. Before we tutsit, jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed. Because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. But standing there on graduation day, watching that sleek black limousine pull up to the curb while everyone's jaws collectively dropped, that moment was worth every single sneer, every hushed laugh, every painful exclusion. They never bothered to learn who I really was. They never knew what my mother and I had been building all those years while they were busy looking down on us. The day I learned I'd been accepted to Westlake Prep started like any other. Mom had left before dawn for her first cleaning shift at the downtown office building, then would head straight to Westlake for her evening work. I'd gotten used to the rhythm of her absence, making my own breakfast, catching the public bus to Riverside Middle School, where I was finishing 8th. Grade with perfect grades despite everything. Our apartment was small but immaculate. Mom might have spent her days cleaning other people's spaces, but our home was her sanctuary. The furniture was secondhand, but chosen with care. The walls were adorned with my academic certificates, and her few treasured photographs, mostly of us, but a few of my father before he'd left us when I was 4. I barely remembered him, and Mom never spoke about him except to say that some people aren't ready for the lives they create. I was heating up leftover rice and beans when I heard the mail slot clatter. Usually, it was just bills, thin white, envelopes that made Mom's forehead crease when she opened them late at night, thinking I was asleep. But that day, there was a thick cream-colored envelope with an embossed crest in the corner. Westlake Preparatory Academy. My hands trembled as I opened it. Dear Ms. Martinez, we are pleased to inform you that you have been selected for a full academic scholarship. I had to read it 3 times before I believed it. The prestigious private school across town, the one where tuition cost more than our rent for a year, wanted me. They'd seen my test scores, read my essay, reviewed my perfect academic record, and they wanted me. I called Mom's cell phone even though she never answered during work hours. To my surprise, she picked up on the 3rd ring. "Mommy, I got in," I said, my voice cracking. "Full scholarship." There was silence, then a muffled sound that could have been a sob. "I knew you would, Misha," she finally said. "I'm so proud of you." That night, we celebrated with a small cake from the panaderia down the street. Mom's eyes were bright with tears and something else. Determination, maybe, or fierce pride. "This is your chance, Sophia," she said, reaching across our tiny kitchen table to squeeze my hand. "This is everything I've worked for." I didn't understand what she meant then. I thought she was just being supportive, the way parents are supposed to be. I had no idea what she was already planning. 2 weeks later, Mom told me she'd gotten a new job. "At Westlake," she said casually, as if it wasn't the kind of coincidence that makes you believe in fate or divine intervention. "Night shift custodial. Staff. But your downtown job?" "I'm keeping that one too," she said, her tone making it clear the decision wasn't up for discussion. "The Westlake position doesn't pay enough on its own." I stared at her, doing the math in my head. "That's 16 hours a day, 6 days a week." She shrugged as if it was nothing. "The scholarship covers tuition, but there are other expenses. Uniforms, books, field trips. I want you to have everything the other students have." "Mom, I don't need—" "This isn't about what you need," she interrupted, suddenly fierce. "This is about what you deserve." And that was that. By the time September rolled around, we had a new routine. Mom would leave at 5 a.m. for her downtown job, work until 2 p.m., come home for a brief nap, then head to Westlake from 6 p.m. until midnight. I barely saw her except on Sundays, when she'd sleep half the day and spend the other half preparing meals for the week ahead. My first day at Westlake was like stepping into another world. The immaculate grounds sprawled over 30 acres, with historic brick buildings, manicured lawns, and facilities that belonged at a small college rather than a high school. The other freshmen arrived in luxury cars driven by parents in business, attire or hired drivers. I took the city bus that stopped 3 blocks away. My uniform was crisp and new. Mom had made sure of that. But somehow, I still felt like an imposter. The other students carried themselves with the easy confidence that comes from never having to wonder if you belong. I clutched my secondhand backpack, carefully chosen to look as close to new as possible, and tried to memorize the campus map I'd been studying for weeks. "You must be Sophia Martinez." A tall girl with honey blonde hair approached me in the main hallway. Her smile seemed genuine, which immediately made me suspicious. "I'm Abigail Whitman, Student Council President. I'm supposed to show you around." "How did you know who I am?" I asked, immediately regretting how defensive I sounded. Her smile faltered slightly. "You're the scholarship recipient, right? The administration asked me to be your buddy for the first week." Of course, the charity case needed a handler. I forced a smile. "That's really nice of you." Abigail gave me the tour, pointing out classrooms and introducing me to teachers who all seemed to blur together. Most of them smiled politely and moved on quickly. Only Mr. Chen, the AP chemistry teacher, seemed genuinely interested. "Martinez," he said, studying me. "I read your entrance essay about polymer degradation in marine environments. Impressive. Research for an 8th grader." I felt my cheeks warm with the rare pleasure of being seen for my mind. "Thank you, sir. I'm looking forward to your class." The other students were a different story. They weren't openly hostile. Westlake prided itself on breeding a certain type of polished civility. But I could feel their curiosity and judgment, like a physical weight. Where did she come from? How did she get in? By lunch, I'd heard whispers about diversity scholarships and lowering standards. I sat alone that first day, carefully eating the lunch Mom had packed. The cafeteria served restaurant-quality food, but that cost extra, and we'd agreed to save where we could. Across the room, Abigail caught my eye and waved, but didn't invite me to join her table of laughing, perfectly groomed friends. I told myself it was fine. I was here to learn, not to socialize. After school, I stayed in the library until it closed at 6 p.m. The longer I could avoid going home to our empty apartment, the better. As I was gathering my things, I noticed the custodial staff starting to arrive for the evening shift. And there was Mom, in her dark blue uniform, pushing a cart of cleaning supplies through the hallway outside. Our eyes met through the glass door. For a moment, I saw a flash of something in her expression. Not embarrassment, but concern. For me. She gave me a small nod and continued past, her back straight, her movements efficient. I waited until the hallway was clear before leaving, my stomach tight with conflicting emotions. Pride in her work ethic, anger at a world where she had to work 2 jobs for me to have this opportunity. And yes, a shameful, fleeting wish that she worked anywhere else but here. The rumors started the second week. I was at my locker when I overheard 2 girls talking around the corner. "Did you know Martinez's mom is on the cleaning crew?" Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Meredith saw her emptying the trash in the science wing. "No way, that's so..." Imagine having to clean your own kid's school. Right? Like, how awkward would that be? Your mom picking up after all your classmates? I slammed my locker shut harder than necessary. and they at least had the decency to look embarrassed when they saw me. But the damage was done. By the end of the day, everyone knew. I was no longer just the scholarship girl. I was the janitor's daughter. Isabel Crawford was the first to say it to my face. She was Westlake royalty, third generation, her family name on one of the campus buildings. We were partnered for a history project, and when she saw me in the library, she slid into the chair across from me with a cold smile. "So, Martinez, I hear your mom's on the cleaning staff. Does she give you the inside scoop on what she finds in the trash? Any good gossip?" I kept my face carefully neutral. "My mother is a custodial engineer, yes, and she's too professional to discuss her work with me." Isabel's smile widened. "Custodial engineer? Is that what they're calling it now?" I took a slow breath. "What would you like to contribute to our history project, Isabel? I've already started the research." "Of course you have," she said, examining her manicure. "I'm sure you're very motivated to keep that scholarship. Must be nice getting a free ride while the rest of us pay full tuition." The librarian glanced our way, and I lowered my voice. "Nothing about my being here is free. Now, do you want to work on this project? Or should I tell Mrs. Blackwell you're not participating?" Something flickered in Isabel's eyes. Surprise. Maybe that I didn't crumble under her contempt. She shrugged and pulled out her tablet. "Whatever. Let's just get this over with." That night, I found Mom cleaning the second-floor bathrooms. She looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes, but her movements were as methodical as ever. "You don't have to do this," I said quietly, from the doorway. "I could get a part-time job instead." Mom straightened, fixing me with a stern look. "Your job is to study, to excel, to take every opportunity this place offers. But everyone knows they're talking about us. Let them talk." She returned to scrubbing the sink. "What do their opinions matter? In 4 years, you'll have a diploma from one of the best schools in the state. You'll go to college, a good one. And then where you came from won't matter, only where you're going." "It matters now," I said, my voice small. Mom set down her sponge and came to me, cupping my face in her hands. They were red and chapped from cleaning chemicals, but so gentle against my skin. "Listen to me, Sophia. There is dignity in all work that is done well. I am not ashamed of what I do, and I don't want you to be ashamed either. Those kids, they've never had to work for anything. They don't understand what it means to sacrifice for something that matters." Her dark eyes held mine, intense and uncompromising. "Promise me you won't let them make you feel small." I swallowed hard. "I promise." She kissed my forehead. "Now go home and finish your homework. I'll see you in the morning." I kept my promise as best I could. When classmates made comments about my mother, I held my head high and focused on my work. I aced every test, raised my hand in every class, and slowly, some of the teachers began to take notice. Mr. Chen recommended me for the Science Olympiad team. Ms. Patel, the calculus teacher, gave me extra problems when I finished my work early. Even Mrs. Blackwell, who rarely praised anyone, nodded approvingly at my history essays. But the social isolation was a constant ache. Lunch periods spent alone or in the library. Group projects where I was the last one chosen. Party invitations that never came. I told myself it didn't matter. I wasn't there to make friends. But some nights I'd cry silently in my bed, wondering what it would be like to belong. There were moments of kindness. Jonathan Park, a quiet boy in my AP biology class, sometimes sat with me in the library. Riley Thompson, a theater kid with bright blue hair, allowed only because her parents were major donors, once told off some girls who were whispering about me in PE. And Abigail Whitman occasionally checked in, her kindness seeming genuine if somewhat distant. But most days, I was invisible at best, a target at worst. the janitor's daughter, the charity case, the girl whose mother cleaned up their messes. Winter came, bringing with it the elaborate Westlake traditions. The snowball, for which girls started planning their dresses months in advance. The alumni dinner, where current students networked with graduated Westlake elites. The winter showcase, where students displayed their talents for the school community. I threw myself into academics instead, joining every competitive academic team that would have me. Math Olympiad, Science Bowl, debate team. If I couldn't be accepted socially, I would make myself indispensable intellectually. And it worked, to some extent. Westlake prided itself on its academic reputation, and my perfect GPA and competition wins reflected well on the school. Then came the science fair. My project on bioremediation of plastic waste, inspired by those early research interests Mr. Chen had noticed, won first place at the school level. Suddenly, I was going to represent Westlake at the state competition. Principal Hargrove called me to his office to congratulate me. It was the first time I'd been in the spacious room with its dark wood paneling and wall of photographs showing the principal with various dignitaries. "Your project is quite impressive, Ms. Martinez," he said, leaning back in his leather chair. "The judges were particularly impressed with your practical applications." "Thank you, sir." He studied me with an expression I couldn't quite read. "You know, when the scholarship committee selected you, there were some concerns about fit. Westlake has a certain culture, a certain standard of excellence that goes beyond academics." My stomach tightened, but I kept my face neutral. "I understand, sir. But you've proven them wrong, haven't you?" He smiled slightly. "Your work ethic is exemplary, and now you'll be representing us at the state level. It's a significant achievement." I should have felt proud. Instead, I felt like a show pony performing tricks. "See? The poor girl with the janitor mother can be trained to bring home ribbons, too." "Will your mother be able to attend the state competition?" he asked, his tone carefully casual. The competition was on a Saturday. Mom worked both jobs on Saturdays. "I'm not sure, sir. She has work commitments." He nodded, unsurprised. "Well, we'll ensure you have proper transportation and supervision. Can't have our champion going unsupported." I wanted to tell him that I had never been unsupported a day in my life, that my mother worked 32 hours over 2 jobs every Saturday so that I could have the proper uniform and textbooks and calculator for his prestigious school, that her support looked like aching hands and weary eyes, and a refrigerator always stocked with healthy food she rarely had time to eat herself. Instead, I just said, "Thank you, sir." The state science fair was held at the convention center downtown. Mom had arranged to take a rare day off from her downtown job, though she'd still have to work at Westlake that evening. She wore her one good outfit, a modest navy dress she saved for parent-teacher conferences, and sat proudly in the audience as I presented my project to the judges. When they announced that I'd won first place in the environmental sciences category and would be advancing to the national competition, Mom was the first one on her feet, applauding with tears streaming down her face. Principal Hargrove, who had come to observe, seemed genuinely pleased, shaking my hand for the official photograph and telling the local newspaper reporter about Westlake's commitment to developing talent wherever we find it. Something shifted after that win, not dramatically, but noticeably. Some teachers who had previously overlooked me now called on me in class. A few students began to acknowledge me in the hallways. Isabel Crawford still sneered when she saw me, but others in her circle seemed less openly hostile. But the most significant change came from an unexpected quarter. One evening, as I was leaving the library, I heard someone call my name. It was Mrs. Blackwell, the history teacher, emerging from a classroom with a stack of papers. "Sophia, do you have a moment?" she asked, her usual brisk tone softened slightly. "Yes, ma'am." She hesitated, which was unusual for her. Mrs. Blackwell was known for her direct, often cutting classroom manner. I wanted to tell you that I was impressed by your essay on the economic factors of the Civil War. Your analysis of the banking systems was particularly insightful." "Thank you," I said, surprised. Mrs. Blackwell rarely gave compliments. "I also wanted to say—" She paused again, looking uncomfortable. "I saw your mother cleaning the faculty lounge last night. She mentioned that you were still at school studying." It was nearly midnight. I felt my defenses rise. "I was preparing for the calculus exam. Mom prefers that I study here while she works, rather than going home alone so late." Mrs. Blackwell nodded. "That's not—" "I wasn't criticizing. I just wanted to say that she spoke about you with such pride. She showed me a picture of you at the science fair." Her voice softened further. It made me realize that I haven't been seeing the full picture of you or of her. I didn't know how to respond. This acknowledgement of my mother as a person, not just the janitor, was so unexpected that it left me speechless. "Anyway," Mrs. Blackwell continued, seeming to regain her usual composure, "I'm submitting your essay to the Historical Society's student competition. The deadline is next week. I'll need you to review and sign the permission form." "Thank you," I managed. "I appreciate that." She gave me a brief nod and continued down the hallway, leaving me staring after her, a complicated mix of emotions swirling in my chest. That night, I watched Mom as she methodically wiped down the science lab counters. There was such care in her movements, such attention to detail. She treated each task, no matter how mundane, with complete focus and respect. Mrs. Blackwell told me she talked to you, I said, that you showed her my picture. Mom smiled slightly, not pausing in her work. She asked about it. I always carry it with me. She patted her uniform pocket, where I knew she kept the small photo from the science fair. She's different than I expected. She actually listens when I speak. You talk to her often? Sometimes, when our paths cross. Mom moved to the next counter. You know, people will surprise you, Mija. The ones you expect to be kind sometimes aren't. And the ones who seem cold can have unexpected depths. I thought about that as I worked on my calculus problems. About how Mrs. Blackwell, with her stern demeanor and exacting standards, had seen my mother, really seen her, when so many others looked right through her. About how perceptions could shift, given time and opportunity. About how maybe, just maybe, there was a place for me at Westlake after all. But the next morning brought a harsh reminder that not everyone's perceptions were changing. I was at my locker when Tyler Richardson, Isabel's boyfriend and the lacrosse team captain, sauntered up with two of his teammates. "Hey, Martinez," he called, loud enough for nearby students to hear. "Question for you. Does your mom clean your house too, or is she too tired from scrubbing our toilets?" His friends snickered. I kept my eyes on my books, trying to control my breathing. Don't let them see you react. Don't give them the satisfaction. I asked. "You a question," Tyler continued, his voice hardening. "Or do you only talk to people who can help you win science fairs?" I slowly turned to face him. "My mother works harder in one day than you've worked in your entire life, Richardson. Now, excuse me. I have class." I tried to move past him, but he stepped into my path. "You know, my dad's on the board of trustees. He says your kind of scholarship is just for publicity, that you're here so Westlake can check a diversity box on their brochures." The hallway had gone quiet, other students watching with that peculiar mix of discomfort and fascination that accompanies public humiliation. I felt heat rising in my cheeks, but I forced myself to meet Tyler's smug gaze. "Is there a problem?" "Here." The voice came from behind Tyler, deep and authoritative. Mr. Chen stepped into view, his expression severe. Tyler immediately straightened, his face arranging itself into innocent confusion. "No, sir. Just talking to Martinez about the science competition. Mr. Chen looked between us, his eyes sharp behind his glasses. Ms. Martinez, aren't you supposed to be in calculus right now? Yes, sir. I was just heading there. Then I suggest you continue on your way? He turned to Tyler. And Mr. Richardson, I believe your physics class started 3 minutes ago. Tyler nodded, shooting me a final glare before sauntering off with his friends. As I passed Mr. Chen, he spoke, quietly enough that only I could hear. Don't let them define you, Sophia. They can only affect you if you give them that power. It was the same message Mom had been trying to instill in me, but somehow, hearing it from a teacher, from someone who navigated the Westlake world daily, made it resonate differently. Later that week, I found a note in my locker. It was unsigned, written in neat handwriting I didn't recognize. Some of us see what's happening. Not all of us are like them. Stay strong. I never found out who wrote it, but that small act of anonymous kindness was like a tiny flame in the darkness, a reminder that I wasn't completely alone, even if my allies remained in the shadows. Spring came, bringing with it college preparation workshops for the freshman class. It seemed absurdly early to me, but at Westlake, the path to elite universities began the moment you entered as a freshman. The guidance counselor, Ms. Reynolds, went through a presentation about summer programs, extracurriculars, and the importance of a well-rounded profile. Colleges are looking for more than just good grades, she explained to the room full of 14 and 15-year-olds. They want to see leadership, community service, athletic achievement, artistic talent, the complete package. I scribbled notes furiously, anxiety building in my chest. How was I supposed to do all of that? Between studying and waiting for Mom? To finish her shift each night, I barely had time for the academic competitions I was already committed to, and many of the summer programs Ms. Reynolds highlighted cost thousands of dollars, money we definitely didn't have. After the presentation, I approached her desk while the other students filed out. Ms. Reynolds, I was wondering if there are any scholarship opportunities for the summer programs you mentioned. She looked up, taking a moment to place me. Ah, Martinez, the science fair winner. Yes, ma'am. She shuffled through some papers. There are a few, though they're quite competitive. I should warn you that even with financial assistance, these programs require significant parental involvement. Transportation, supplies sometimes, housing arrangements if they're out of state. My heart sank. Mom could barely manage our current schedule. There was no way she could add driving me to and from a summer program, much less deal with the logistics of something out of state. Ms. Reynolds must have read my expression. There are also some local options that might be more accessible. The community college offers a STEM program for high school students. It's not as prestigious as the university programs, but it's something for your resume. I nodded, trying not to show my disappointment. Thank you. I'll look into that. As I turned to leave, she called after me. Martinez, your academic record is stellar. Focus on maintaining that and on your science competitions. That's your strength. Play to it. It was practical advice, if somewhat deflating. While my classmates were planning summer internships at their parents' companies or research positions arranged through family connections, I would be scraping together whatever opportunities I could find on my own. But a week later, Mr. Chen stopped me after chemistry class. Sophia, do you have a moment? Yes, sir. He handed me a folder. I've recommended you for the Wilson Institute's Young Scientist program. It's a 6-week research opportunity at the university, fully funded including a small stipend. I stared at him, then at the folder, unable to process what he was saying. The Wilson Institute was prestigious, one of the top research facilities in the state. But how? Don't you need connections to get in? Mr. Chen smiled slightly. You need talent and a recommendation from someone the selection committee trusts. I used to work at the institute before I started teaching. The director owes me a favor. His expression turned serious. This is a significant opportunity, Sophia. It could open doors for you. I opened the folder with trembling hands, scanning the program description. 6 weeks of hands-on research alongside university professors and graduate students. The stipend wasn't much, but it would help offset the income I might have earned at a summer job. The application deadline is next Friday, Mr. Chen continued. I've already started your recommendation letter. The rest is up to you. Thank you, I said, my voice thick with emotion. I don't know what to say. You can thank me by making the most of it. Your mind is exceptional, Sophia. Don't let anyone tell you where you belong or what you deserve. That night, I showed the application to Mom. But you have my determination, my heart. You are the best of both worlds, Mija. And I decided that you would have every opportunity that he had. Every door open to you, no matter what it cost me. Tears welled in my eyes. Is that why you push so hard? Why you work 2 jobs and never complain? She nodded. His family thought I wasn't good enough, that our child wouldn't be worthy of their name. I've spent 15 years proving them wrong through you. Her eyes gleamed with a fierce pride. And now look at you, Westlake's top student, accepted to the Wilson Institute. Everything they said, you couldn't be. I didn't know what to say. All these years, I'd thought Mom was just doing what parents do, working to provide, sacrificing because that's what love looks like. I hadn't understood that there was another layer to her determination, a point she was proving not just to the world, but to the ghosts of our past. I don't care about proving anything to them, I said finally. I only care about making you proud. She squeezed my hand. You already have, 1,000 times over. But this isn't just about me anymore, or about proving your father's family wrong. This is about you building a life where no one can ever make you feel small because of where you came from. A life where you are valued for exactly who you are. As I went to bed that night, my mind whirled with everything Mom had shared. The father I barely remembered now had context, a story that explained his absence. It didn't excuse it, nothing could. But it helped me understand Mom's relentless push for my education, her willingness to endure the indignities of cleaning, up after entitled teenagers so that I could sit in the same classrooms with their children. It wasn't just about opportunities, it was about justice. About proving that worth isn't determined by family name or bank account size. The summer between freshman and sophomore year transformed everything. The Wilson Institute became my sanctuary, a place where nobody knew me as the janitor's daughter, where my mind was the only currency that mattered. Each morning, I'd take the bus across town to the sprawling university campus, my ID badge clipped to my carefully chosen blouse, and for 6 glorious hours, I was just Sophia Martinez, research assistant. Dr. Eleanor Reeves, the biochemist who supervised my project, treated me with a respect I'd rarely experienced at Westlake. She didn't care that I was only 15 or that I came from a modest background. She cared that I showed up early, asked insightful questions, and approached each experiment with meticulous attention to detail. You have an exceptional mind, Sophia, she told me one afternoon as we analyzed our results. The way you approach problems, it's not just about intelligence. You have scientific intuition. I blushed at the praise. I just like understanding how things work. Dr. Reeves smiled. That's exactly what I mean. Many students your age are focused on getting the right answer for a grade. You're focused on understanding the mechanism. That's the difference between a student and a scientist. Her words settled in my chest like a warm stone. A scientist. Not a scholarship case or a diversity initiative. A scientist. The other research assistants, mostly undergraduate students, with a few graduate students supervising, accepted me as one of their own after the initial surprise of having a high school student in their midst wore off. When they learned I was from Westlake, they made assumptions about my background that I didn't correct. Let them believe I belonged to the same world as the other Westlake students. In this space, I could reinvent myself. Andrew Kim, a sophomore biochemistry major with kind eyes and a quick laugh, became my unofficial mentor. He showed me shortcuts around the massive lab equipment, taught me how to properly format my research notes, and never made me feel stupid for asking questions. "Everyone starts somewhere," he said when I apologized for needing help with the chromatography machine. 2 years ago, I was where you are now. 2 years from now, you'll be helping some nervous freshman. The idea that I had a future in this world, that people like Andrew and Dr. Reeves saw me as a colleague in training rather than an outsider, was intoxicating. For the first time, I could envision a path forward that wasn't constantly uphill, constantly pushing against perceptions and prejudices. Mom noticed the change in me immediately. Though she was still working her punishing schedule, she made time each night to hear about my day at the institute. "You look different," she said one evening as we ate a late dinner together. "More settled in your skin." I struggled to articulate the feeling. At Westlake, I'm always proving I deserve to be there. At the institute, it's just assumed. No one's waiting for me to fail. Mom nodded thoughtfully. "That's how it should be everywhere." She reached across the table to squeeze my hand. "One day, it will be." The program culminated in a research symposium where each student presented their findings to an audience of scientists, university faculty, and even some industry representatives. I spent days perfecting my presentation, practicing until the words flowed naturally. "You've got this," Andrew assured me the morning of the symposium. "Your research is solid, and you understand it better than anyone. Just talk to them like you talk to me." When my turn came, I stepped up to the podium, scanning the room of attentive faces. No sneers, no whispers, no preconceived judgments. Just scientists waiting to hear about science. I took a deep breath and began. 20 minutes later, as I wrapped up my presentation on biodegradable polymer applications for marine cleanup, the applause felt genuine. During the Q&A session, I fielded questions with a confidence that surprised even me. These people were taking me seriously, not as a curiosity or a token, but as a contributor to the field. Afterward, several attendees approached to discuss my research further. One woman handed me her business card. She worked for an environmental engineering firm and wanted to keep in touch. A university professor asked if I'd considered applying to their early admission program. Dr. Reeves stood nearby, beaming, like a proud parent. And then, at the reception that followed, a distinguished older man in an impeccable suit approached me. "Ms. Martinez, I'm Dr. Victor Harlow, Dean of Sciences at Bristol University." I nearly choked on my sparkling water. Bristol was one of the top research universities in the country. "Your presentation was impressive," he continued, "particularly considering your age. Dr. Reeves tells me you're entering your sophomore year of high school?" "Yes, sir, at Westlake Preparatory Academy." A flash of recognition crossed his face. "Ah, Westlake, excellent school. We accept quite a few of their graduates each year." He studied me for a moment. "Keep up this caliber of work, Ms. Martinez, and I'd be very interested in seeing your college application in a few years. We have substantial scholarships for promising scientists." After he walked away, I stood frozen, his words echoing in my mind. For the first time, college felt like a concrete possibility, not just a distant dream. Not just any college, but a top-tier university with a pathway to a real scientific career. When I told Mom about Dr. Harlow that night, her eyes filled with tears. "You see?" she said, her voice thick with emotion. "This is why we push through the hard days, for moments like this." The last day of the program, Dr. Reeves called me into her office. "I have something for you," she said, handing me an envelope. Inside was a formal letter offering me a paid position as a part-time lab assistant during the school year, just weekends, with flexible hours to accommodate my studies. "We'd love to have you continue your research with us," Dr. Reeves said. The stipend isn't much, but it's something for your resume. More importantly, it keeps you connected to this work. I stared at the letter, speechless. A real job in a real research lab. Not washing dishes or bagging groceries, but doing meaningful scientific work. I don't know what to say, I managed finally. Dr. Reeves smiled. Say yes. We need bright minds, like yours in this field, Sophia. I returned to Westlake that fall a different person. Still the janitor's daughter, still on scholarship, still an outsider in many ways. But now with something none of my classmates had. Real-world research. Experience at a prestigious institute and a part-time position that aligned with my career goals. My confidence was quiet but unmistakable. When Isabel Crawford commented loudly about charity cases in the hallway, I walked past without a flicker of reaction. Her words couldn't touch me anymore. I had been validated in ways she couldn't understand, by people whose opinions actually mattered in the world I was entering. The changes were subtle at first. Mr. Chen, who had recommended me for the Wilson program, now introduced me to visiting scientists as one of our most promising researchers. Ms. Patel asked if I would consider tutoring some of the struggling calculus students. Mrs. Blackwell nominated me for the academic decathlon team. Some of my classmates began to look at me differently too. Not friendship exactly, but a grudging respect. Jonathan Park, my occasional library companion from freshman year, now joined me regularly for study sessions. He never mentioned my background, never seemed to care about anything except our shared interest in science and the fact that I could explain complex chemistry concepts in ways that made sense to him. You should consider teaching someday, he told me once. You make complicated things sound simple. I thought about Dr. Reeves and how she had treated me like a colleague rather than a student. Maybe, but I think I want to focus on research first. Jonathan nodded. You'd be good at that too. You're kind of intimidatingly smart, you know that? I laughed, unused to such direct compliments. I'm just persistent. No, he said seriously. It's more than that. You see connections other people miss. These small validations collected like treasures, each one helping to rebuild the self-image that had been so constantly under attack during my freshman year. I wasn't just surviving at Westlake anymore. I was beginning to thrive in my own quiet way. The weekend lab assistant position at the Wilson Institute provided another unexpected benefit: money I could contribute at home. The stipend wasn't large, but it was enough to cover some of our groceries and my school supplies. I insisted that Mom let me help, and after some argument, she relented. Just don't let it interfere with your studies, she warned. That comes first. It won't, I promised. The lab work actually helps with my classes. I'm understanding chemistry and biology on a deeper level now. The reduction in financial pressure, however small, seemed to ease some of the constant worry lines around Mom's eyes. She still worked both jobs. Our situation wasn't so improved that she could afford to cut back. But knowing that I could help, that I was beginning to build my own path forward, lightened her emotional burden. One Saturday in late October, Andrew Kim, my mentor from the summer program who had continued working at the lab, invited me to join a group of undergraduate research assistants for lunch. We're just going to the campus cafe, he said casually. Nothing fancy, but you're part of the team now and we all hang out sometimes. I hesitated. Social invitations were still foreign territory. I don't know. Come on, he encouraged. It's just lunch. We'll probably end up talking about protein folding the whole time anyway. I called Mom to let her know I'd be back to meet her at Westlake a little later than usual. To my surprise, she immediately told me to go. You need friends, Mija, she said. People who understand this part of your life. Go. Have fun. I can entertain myself for a few hours. The lunch was nothing like the social gatherings at Westlake. No one was posturing or jockeying for status. The conversation flowed naturally from research topics to classes to movies to personal stories. I found myself relaxing, even laughing, as Andrew recounted a disastrous experiment from his freshman year. So there I am, covered in what was supposed to be a harmless saline solution but was actually concentrated potassium permanganate, he explained, grinning. My hands were purple for 2 weeks. My roommate started calling me the grape. Tina Chen, a junior studying molecular biology, rolled her eyes. At least you didn't set off the building alarm with your mistake. I still get dirty looks from Dr. Hansen for making everyone evacuate during a January snowstorm. I listened to their stories with a mixture of amusement and relief. These accomplished students, people who were succeeding in the world I wanted to enter, had made mistakes too, had felt out of their depth, had persevered anyway. What about you, Sophia? Tina asked. Any lab disasters yet? I shook my head. Not yet, but I'm still new. Give it time, Andrew assured me with a laugh. It's practically a rite of passage. As the conversation continued, I found myself sharing more than I usually did. About my classes at Westlake, about my research interests, even a little about my mother and how she had always encouraged my scientific curiosity, despite not having a background in it herself. I didn't mention that she was a janitor, not out of shame, but because it wasn't relevant to who I was in this context. Here, I was Sophia, the research assistant, Sophia the budding scientist, not Sophia the scholarship student, or Sophia the janitor's daughter. The freedom of that simple reality was exhilarating. When I returned to Westlake that evening to meet Mom, I was still buoyed by the sense of belonging I'd experienced. For a few hours, I had glimpsed what my future could be, surrounded by peers who valued knowledge and curiosity, where background and status symbols mattered less than ideas and contributions. Mom was finishing up the faculty lounge when I found her. She looked tired, as always, but her eyes brightened when she saw my expression. You had a good time, she observed, wiping down the coffee table. She was exhausted after her double shift, but she sat with me at the kitchen table, carefully reading every page. This is important, she said finally. This is the kind of opportunity that changes things. But the timing, I hesitated. It's every day, Monday through Friday. I was planning to get a job to help with expenses this summer. Mom shook her head firmly. No, this is your job now. Learning, preparing, building your future. She took my hand in hers, her calloused fingers squeezing mine. I can pick up extra shifts on the weekend. We'll manage. I looked at her, really looked at her. The gray strands multiplying in her dark hair, the deep lines around her eyes that hadn't been there a year ago, the way she held herself carefully as if her body ached in places she wouldn't acknowledge. Mom, you're already working too much. I can't let you... This isn't a discussion, she interrupted, her voice gentle but firm. Some sacrifices are investments, Sophia. This is one of them. She tapped the application. Now tell me about this project proposal you need to write. What are you thinking? And just like that, she redirected the conversation, refusing to dwell on the cost, focusing instead on the opportunity. It was how she had always faced challenges, head-on, pragmatic, with an unwavering belief that hard work and sacrifice would eventually yield results. I worked on my application for days, drafting and redrafting my research proposal until every word was perfect. Mr. Chen reviewed it twice, offering suggestions that strengthened my methodology. When I finally submitted it, I felt a strange mix of pride and terror. This mattered too much. The rejection would crush me. 3 weeks later, the acceptance email arrived. I stared at my phone screen in the school library, reading and rereading the message until the words blurred. I'd done it. I was in. I called Mom immediately, forgetting that she would be in the middle of her downtown shift. Mija, is everything okay? Her voice was concerned. I never called during her work hours. I got in, I said, my voice breaking. The Wilson program. They accepted me. Her sudden intake of breath was followed by a sound between a laugh and a sob. Of course they did. Of course they did, my brilliant girl. For a moment, we just breathed together on the phone, sharing this victory that belonged to both of us. I have to go, she said finally. My supervisor is coming, but tonight we celebrate. I'm bringing home pastries from that bakery you love. That night, as we shared flaky guava pastries at our small kitchen table, Mom seemed younger somehow. The constant worry lines in her forehead temporarily smoothed away. I was thinking, she said, licking sugar from her fingers in a rare moment of indulgence. When you're at the Wilson program, you'll need proper clothes, professional clothes, lab appropriate. I nodded, already concerned about this. My Westlake uniform had stretched our budget thin enough. Professional attire for a research setting was another expense we hadn't planned for. I've been saving, Mom continued. Just a little each week, for emergencies or opportunities. She reached for her purse and pulled out a small envelope. There's enough here for a few nice outfits. Nothing flashy, but good quality. The kind that makes people take you seriously. I stared at the envelope. Mom, we should save that for... This is what it's for, she interrupted. For the moments that matter. For making sure you never walk into a room feeling less than anyone else there. I took the envelope, my throat tight with emotion. Thank you, she smiled, reaching out to tuck a strand of hair behind my ear. There's something else I've been meaning to tell you. Something I think you're old enough to understand now. Her tone made me sit up straighter. What is it? Mom took a deep breath. Your father didn't just leave us, Sophia. That's the simple story I told you when you were too young to understand the complicated one. I froze. Mom never spoke about my father. The subject had been closed for so long that I'd stopped asking years ago. What do you mean? She looked down at her hands, then back at me, her gaze steady. Your father was a graduate student when I met him. Brilliant, charming, ambitious. I was working in the university cafeteria, putting myself through community college classes at night. I listened, barely breathing, as she unfolded a story I had never heard before. We fell in love. It was fast, intense. His family didn't approve. I wasn't from their world, didn't have their education or connections. But Ramon didn't care. Or I thought he didn't. Ramon. My father had a name now, a story. When I got pregnant, everything changed. His fellowship opportunity in Europe suddenly became more important. His family's opinions suddenly mattered. He made his choice, and it wasn't us. He just left? I asked, the familiar childhood hurt resurfacing. Mom's eyes hardened. He offered money to take care of the problem. When I refused, he offered a monthly check on the condition that I never contact him or his family again. I tore it up in front of him. Pride and anger flared in me simultaneously. Good. For years I was so angry, Mom continued. Not just at him, but at myself for believing that love could bridge worlds so different. But then you started growing up, started showing how brilliant you are, and I realized something. She reached across the table to take my hand. You have his intelligence, his quick mind. I did, I admitted. They're nice, normal, not what I expected college students to be like. Mom smiled knowingly. Most people are more than what others expect them to be. She straightened up, wincing slightly as she stretched her back. Including you, Mija. As my sophomore year progressed, I settled into a rhythm. Weekdays at Westlake, challenging myself academically and slowly gaining recognition for my achievements. Weekends at the Wilson Institute, building practical skills, and professional relationships that would serve me long after high school. Evenings with Mom, whenever our schedules aligned, sharing the small victories and persistent challenges of our parallel journeys. In December, I won the regional academic decathlon in the science category, bringing an unexpected trophy back. to Westlake. Principal Hargrove called me to his office to congratulate me, his manner noticeably warmer than during our conversation the previous year. "You're making quite a name for yourself, Ms. Martinez," he said, gesturing to the chair, across from his desk. "First the science fair, now this. The Board of Trustees has taken notice." I sat up straighter, unsure where this was going. "Thank you, sir. In fact," he continued, "they've asked me to feature your achievements in our alumni newsletter. A sort of scholarship success story, if you will." I stiffened. So that's what this was about. I wasn't just a student whose achievements reflected well on the school. I was a PR opportunity. Look at our charity case thriving. See how diverse and inclusive we are. "I appreciate the recognition," I said carefully, "but I'd prefer to let my work speak for itself." Principal Hargrove looked surprised. "This would be good exposure for you, Sophia. These newsletters go out to our alumni network, people with connections at top universities, potential internship opportunities." The offer was tempting, I had to admit. Connections were currency in this world, and I had so few of them. But the idea of being paraded as Westlake's token success story, the poor girl made good by their generosity, made my stomach turn. "I understand," I said, "but I'm still building my research portfolio. Perhaps next year, when I have more accomplishments to highlight." It was a diplomatic deflection, and Principal Hargrove seemed to accept it, though his smile had cooled. "As you wish. But remember, Sophia, these opportunities don't come along every day, especially for students in your situation." My situation. The words hung in the air, a reminder that no matter how many competitions I won or how much respect I earned from teachers, some things wouldn't change. To the administration, I would always be a charity case first, a student second. I nodded politely and excused myself, the victory of the academic decathlon suddenly feeling hollow. In the hallway, I leaned against the wall for a moment, taking a deep breath. This was the reality I had to navigate, the constant balancing act between accepting opportunities and maintaining my dignity. That evening, I told Mom about the conversation as we ate dinner in the nearly empty Westlake cafeteria after hours. She listened thoughtfully, then set down her fork. "You were right to say no," she said firmly. "Your achievements aren't a feel-good story for their donors. They're the result of your hard work and brilliance. But what if I'm closing doors? What if those connections could have helped me later?" Mom's eyes were steady. "The right doors will open for you, Mija. And when? They do. You'll walk through them on your own terms, not as someone's charitable project." I thought of Dr. Reeves and the Wilson Institute, of Dr. Harlow from Bristol University. Doors that had opened because of my abilities, not my background. Mom was right. There would be other opportunities, better ones that didn't come with strings attached. As winter turned to spring, I focused on cementing my academic standing and expanding my research at the Wilson Institute. When course selection for junior year came around, I opted for the most rigorous schedule possible. All AP classes, with independent study options in both chemistry and biology. "This is an extremely challenging course load, Ms. Reynolds," the guidance counselor commented during our advisory meeting. "Even our top students typically take a more balanced approach." "I can handle it," I said confidently. "And these courses align with my research interests." She studied me, then nodded slowly. "You've certainly proven yourself so far. But remember, colleges also look for well-roundedness. Extracurriculars, leadership positions, community service." "I have my research position at the Wilson Institute," I reminded her. "And I'm on the academic decathlon team." "Both excellent," she agreed. "But have you considered any leadership roles? Student government, perhaps? Or starting a club related to your interests?" I hadn't. Those spaces had always seemed closed to me, dominated by students with generations of Westlake legacy behind them, students who had been groomed since childhood for leadership roles and social prominence. "I'm not sure that's my area," I said carefully. Ms. Reynolds leaned forward. "Sophia, may I speak frankly?" I nodded, bracing myself. "You've carved out an impressive academic niche here. Your teachers speak highly of your intellect and work ethic. But high school is also about developing other aspects of yourself: social skills, leadership abilities, collaborative experiences. You've kept yourself somewhat isolated." It took effort not to laugh at the irony. I hadn't isolated myself. I'd been isolated by circumstance, by background, by the social dynamics of a place where wealth and status determined belonging. But I couldn't say that to Ms. Reynolds, who meant well but couldn't possibly understand. "I'll think about it," I said instead. "Maybe a science club or study group." She brightened. "Excellent idea. We don't currently have a dedicated research club, and with your experience at the Wilson Institute, you'd be the perfect person to start one." The idea took root as I left her office. A club for students interested in scientific research. A space where someone like freshman year me might find guidance and support. A way to share what I'd learned and help others navigate paths I'd had to discover on my own. I discussed it with Mr. Chen, who immediately offered to be the faculty sponsor. "The school has resources for this," he told me. "Lab equipment that sits unused after hours, journal subscriptions, even some funding for small research projects. It just needs someone to put the pieces together." Over the next few weeks, I drafted a proposal for the Westlake Scientific Research Society, a club that would connect students with real research opportunities, host visiting scientists, and work on collaborative projects. Mr. Chen helped me refine it, then secured a meeting with the administration. To my surprise, Principal Hargrove approved it enthusiastically. Perhaps he saw it as another PR opportunity, or maybe he genuinely recognized the educational value. Either way, by the end of sophomore year, posters announcing the new club were up around campus with my name listed as founding president. It felt strange, seeing my name in a position of authority, being viewed as someone who could lead rather than someone who needed to be accepted. Strange, but not unwelcome. Summer arrived, bringing with it an expanded role at the Wilson Institute. Dr. Reeves had secured grant funding that allowed her to hire me full-time for the summer months, working on a continuation of the research we'd started the previous year. "Your contributions have been valuable," she told me. "This isn't charity, Sophia. I'd be hiring you regardless of your age or background. You've earned this position." The validation, coming from someone whose opinion I deeply respected, meant everything. This wasn't Westlake making a show of their scholarship student success. This was a respected scientist recognizing genuine ability and potential. With the increased stipend from my summer position, I was able to contribute more substantially at home. Mom and I sat down one evening to review our finances, a monthly ritual she had always handled alone before. "We could consider a slightly larger apartment," I suggested, looking at the numbers. "Something closer to Westlake, maybe, to reduce your commute time." Mom shook her head. "Not yet. Let's build our savings first. I've been putting money aside for your college expenses. Scholarships won't cover everything." I stared at her. "You've been saving for college, even with everything else?" She nodded, a small smile playing at her lips. "Just a little each month. It adds up over time." "But Mom, you're exhausted, working 2 jobs, never taking time off. We could use that money now to make things easier for you." Her expression turned serious. "Sophia, listen to me. I didn't work this hard, for this long, just to make our present a little more comfortable. I did it to secure your future." I felt tears prick at my eyes. "But what about your future? Your present?" She reached across the table to take my hand. "My future is watching you build yours. My present is seeing you succeed. That's enough for me." It wasn't enough for me, though. As I entered my junior year at Westlake, I became more determined than ever to find a way forward that would ease Mom's burden sooner rather than later. The newly formed Westlake Scientific Research Society gave me an unexpected opportunity to do just that. Our first meeting attracted 23 students, a surprisingly large turnout that included not just the usual science enthusiasts, but also several students I would never have expected to see in such a setting. Among them was Riley Thompson, the blue-haired theater kid who had once defended me in PE, and, most surprisingly, Abigail Whitman, the student council president who had been my buddy during that first difficult week of freshman year. "Nice turnout," Mr. Chen remarked as I set up the presentation outlining the club's objectives. "Not bad for a new organization." I nodded, still scanning the room in disbelief. There was even a handful of seniors, including some headed to prestigious universities the following year. "Welcome to the first meeting of the Westlake Scientific Research Society," I began, forcing confidence into my voice. "For those who don't know me, I'm Sophia Martinez. I've been working at the Wilson Institute since last summer, and this club is designed to connect Westlake students with similar research opportunities." As I outlined my vision for the club, mentorship connections, small research grants, journal access, guest speakers, I saw genuine interest in the faces watching me. Not pity or curiosity or judgment, interest. "Any questions?" I asked after finishing my presentation. Several hands shot up. The questions were thoughtful, practical. How would research topics be selected? Would there be opportunities to publish? Could the club help students develop their own research proposals? I answered each one as thoroughly as I could, drawing on my experiences at the Wilson Institute. When I didn't know an answer, I said so honestly, promising to find out. As the meeting dispersed, Abigail Whitman approached me. "This is a great idea, Sophia. The kind of initiative that really stands out on college applications." "That's not why I started it," I said, perhaps too defensively. She raised an eyebrow. "I didn't mean to imply it was. I meant it as a compliment." She hesitated, then added, "I've been thinking about pursuing medical research, neuroscience specifically. Would the club be able to help connect members with labs in that field?" I was caught off guard by her genuine interest. Yes, potentially. The Wilson Institute has a neuroscience department. I could speak with my supervisor about possible introductions." Abigail nodded. "That would be amazing. Thank you." She turned to leave, then paused. "And Sophia? It's really impressive what you've accomplished here. Not everyone could have done this." After she left, I stood frozen for a moment, processing what had just happened. Abigail Whitman, social butterfly, student council president from one of Westlake's wealthiest families, had asked me, the janitor's daughter, for help with her career aspirations. Had spoken to me as a peer, even someone with knowledge and connection she valued. The world was shifting, subtly but undeniably. Or perhaps it was just my place in it that was changing. That night, as Mom and I ate dinner in our small kitchen, I told her about the club's successful launch. She listened with proud attention, asking questions about the students who had attended and the projects we hoped to undertake. One of the seniors mentioned the possibility of research grants. I said, "Small ones, for student projects." But it got me thinking about other funding sources. Mom looked up from her plate. "What kind of funding sources?" "There are competitions for young scientists with substantial cash prizes, national ones with corporate sponsorship, the kind that look impressive on college applications but also come with real money. And you think you could win these competitions?" Mom asked, though her tone suggested she already knew the answer. I nodded. "With the right project, yes. Dr. Reeves thinks so too. She's been encouraging me to think bigger, to develop my own research initiative rather than just assisting with hers." "My brilliant girl," Mom said softly, "always reaching higher." It's not just about achievement, I admitted. The top prizes in these competitions are substantial. $10,000, $20,000. Even more for the international ones. That kind of money could make a real difference for us. Mom was quiet for a moment. Sophia, I don't want you to feel responsible for our financial situation. That's my burden to carry, not yours. It's not a burden, I insisted. It's an opportunity. To combine what I love doing with something practical. Something that could help us both. She studied me, then nodded slowly. If this is what you want to pursue, I support you. But promise me one thing. What? That you'll do it because you're passionate about the research, not just because of the potential prize money. Your science should always come from your heart and your mind, not from necessity. I promised, though privately, I wondered if the distinction was as clear as Mom believed. Couldn't passion and practicality coexist? Couldn't I pursue research I genuinely cared about while also being motivated by the potential to improve our circumstances? As junior year progressed, I divided my energy between my coursework, the research club, my weekend position at the Wilson Institute, and developing my own project for the National Young Scientists competition. The workload was intense, but I thrived on it. Each achievement, each small recognition, felt like another step away from the shadow of being the janitor's daughter, and toward being simply Sophia Martinez, scientist and scholar. The research club grew, attracting new members and establishing itself as one of Westlake's more prestigious extracurriculars. We secured visiting speakers from local universities, arranged lab tours, and even helped 2 seniors develop research, proposals that were accepted by college departments for summer internships. My own project, developing a low-cost, biodegradable filter system for removing microplastics from water supplies in developing countries, was advancing well. Dr. Reeves had allocated lab space and resources for me to work on it outside. My regular assistant duties and the preliminary results were promising. This has real potential, she told me after reviewing my latest data. Not just as a competition entry, but as a practical solution to a growing environmental crisis. Her words fueled my determination. This wasn't just about winning prize money anymore. It was about creating something that mattered, something that could help people beyond the privileged walls of Westlake or even the Wilson Institute. In February, I submitted my research proposal to the national competition. The waiting period that followed was excruciating. I threw myself into refining my prototype, running additional tests, preparing for the possibility of advancing to the final round while trying not to get my hopes too high. One afternoon in late March, as I was leaving chemistry class, Mr. Chen called me back. "Sophia, I just received an email I think you'll want to see," he said, turning his computer screen toward me. The message was from the Young Scientists Competition Committee. My project had been selected as one of 20 finalists nationwide. I would be presenting at the national competition in Washington, D.C. in May. "This is exceptional," Mr. Chen said, beaming. "Only 20 students from the entire country. And the prize for the overall winner is $50,000, I finished, my voice barely above a whisper. The amount had increased since I'd first researched the competition. $50,000. Enough to make a real difference in our lives. Enough for Mom to consider cutting back her hours, maybe even quitting one of her jobs. "Congratulations," Mr. Chen said warmly. "This is well-deserved recognition." I called Mom immediately, my hands shaking with excitement. "Finalist," she exclaimed when I told her. "Mija, I'm so proud of you. So proud." "The school will cover the travel expenses," I explained. "All finalists get an all-expenses-paid trip to D.C. You'll be able to come too, Mom. They provide for one parent or guardian." There was a pause on the line. "The competition. When is it exactly?" "May 15th through 17th, a Thursday through Saturday." Another pause. "I'll need to request time off. From both jobs. well in advance. You can do that, right? This is important, Mom. Of course, she said quickly. Of course I'll be there. Nothing could keep me away from this. But I heard the concern beneath her assurances. Time off meant lost wages. Lost wages meant tighter finances. Even with my weekend job helping to supplement our income, we were still living close to the edge. Mom, I said quietly, if I win this, if I get the top prize, that's $50,000. Sophia, think about what that could mean for us. You could cut back your hours, maybe even quit the night. Job at Westlake. We could move to a better apartment, closer to both our jobs. You wouldn't have to work yourself to exhaustion anymore. Her voice softened. One step at a time, Mija. Let's focus on preparing your presentation. The rest will take care of itself. But I couldn't stop thinking about it. $50,000, a life-changing sum for us. The difference between subsistence and stability, between survival and comfort. As the competition approached, I dedicated every spare moment to perfecting my project and presentation. Dr. Reeves provided invaluable guidance, helping me anticipate the judges' questions and refine my prototype. The other members of the research club acted as my practice audience, offering feedback and encouragement. Even some teachers who had previously paid little attention to me now took notice. Mrs. Blackwell, who had warmed to me somewhat since our conversation sophomore year, offered to help me polish my presentation skills. Mr. Chen arranged for me to present to several science classes as practice. The most surprising support came from Abigail Whitman. She approached me after a research club meeting in early May. I heard you're a finalist in the Young Scientists competition, she said. That's a big deal, Sophia. Thanks, I replied, still somewhat guarded despite our improved relationship. My mom works in PR, she continued. She's helped coach people for major presentations. If you want, she'd be willing to give you some pointers. Professional level stuff. I stared at her, caught off guard by the offer. That's really generous. But why would she do that for me? Abigail shrugged. I told her about your project. She thought it was impressive. And honestly, it would be cool to say someone from our school won a national competition. She paused. Plus, I think what you've done with the research club has been great. You've helped a lot of people, including me. It was the closest thing to friendship I'd experienced at Westlake. Not quite there yet, but a genuine connection based on mutual respect rather than charity or obligation. Okay, I said finally. If she's really willing, I'd appreciate the help. The session with Mrs. Whitman proved invaluable. A polished, confident woman with sharp insights, she immediately identified ways to strengthen my presentation. You know your science, she told me. That's clear. But these competitions aren't just about having the best research. They're about communicating it effectively, making the judges see not just what you've done, but why it matters. She coached me on everything from my stance to my voice modulation to the structure of my opening statement. By the end of our 2-hour session, my presentation had transformed from technically sound to genuinely compelling. Thank you, I said sincerely as she packed up her notes. This has been incredibly helpful. Mrs. Whitman smiled. It was my pleasure. It's refreshing to work with someone who has substance behind their words. She gave me a quick, appraising look. You're going to do great things, Sophia. Remember me when you're changing the world. As the competition date drew closer, a new worry emerged. Mom still hadn't confirmed that she'd gotten the time off approved. Each time I asked, she assured me it was being worked out, or almost finalized. I could sense her tension, see the worry lines deepening around her eyes. Finally, a week before we were set to leave for Washington, she sat me down at our kitchen table. Sophia, we need to talk about the competition, she began, her voice carefully steady. I've been trying to arrange the time off, but there's a complication. The downtown building where I work during the day is having their annual inspection that weekend. All custodial staff are required to be present. My heart sank. Can't you explain? This is important, Mom. It's a national competition. She nodded. I tried, but they've made it clear. If I'm not there, I shouldn't come back. They have people waiting for these jobs, Mija. They don't make exceptions. What about Westlake? Surely they would understand. Westlake is more flexible, she admitted. But even there, finding coverage for 3 consecutive nights is difficult. I stared at her, the implications sinking in. So what are you saying? You can't come at all? She reached for my hand. I'm saying that I might not be able to be there for all 3 days. I'm trying to negotiate a compromise. Perhaps missing just 1 day of the downtown job and getting partial coverage at Westlake. But I wanted you to be prepared in case. In case you can't come at all, I finished, my voice flat. Sophia. Mom's grip tightened. Listen to me. Whether I'm physically there or not, I am with you, always. And I am so proud of what you've accomplished. I nodded mechanically, but inside disappointment crashed through me like a wave. This was supposed to be our moment, not just mine, but ours. The culmination of years of sacrifice and determination. Mom deserved to be there, to see the fruits of our shared struggle, to stand proudly as her daughter competed against the best young scientific minds in the country. I understand, I said finally, though I didn't. Not really. It's not your fault. I'm still trying, she insisted. Don't give up hope yet, but I wanted you to be prepared, just in case. The days before the competition passed in a blur of final preparations and growing anxiety. Mom continued making calls, trying to arrange coverage for her shifts, but with each passing day, her expression grew more strained. I focused on my presentation, channeling my disappointment into determination. If Mom couldn't be there to witness my achievement, I would make sure it was an achievement worth fighting for. The day before I was set to leave for Washington, Mom came home later than usual, her face drawn with exhaustion, but her eyes bright with something I hadn't seen in days. Hope. I spoke with Mrs. Blackwell, she said as soon as she walked through the door. She went to Principal Hargrove on my behalf. I set down the prototype filter I'd been adjusting. What happened? Westlake has agreed to find coverage for my shifts Thursday through Saturday, and Mrs. Blackwell's husband works for a maintenance company that sometimes contracts with my downtown building. He spoke with their management. She took a deep breath. I'll have to work double shifts when I return, but I can come to Washington, Mija. I can be there for your presentation. I launched myself into her arms, nearly knocking her over. Really? You're sure? She laughed, hugging me tightly. Yes, I'm sure. I wouldn't miss this for anything. The relief that washed over me was so intense it brought tears to my eyes. Thank you, I whispered. For everything. For always finding a way. Mom held me at arm's length, her gaze serious. Remember this feeling, Sophia. Remember that there are good people in unexpected places. Mrs. Blackwell didn't have to help us. She chose to. It was a revelation I was still processing. That the stern history teacher who had once barely acknowledged my existence had become an unexpected ally. That behind Westlake's polished facade of privilege and exclusion, there were individuals capable of seeing beyond background and circumstance. The flight to Washington the next morning was surreal. Mom and I had never traveled by plane together, had never traveled much at all beyond the city limits. We sat side by side, her hand occasionally squeezing mine during takeoff and turbulence, both of us gazing out the window at the patchwork landscape below. Look at that, Mom whispered as we began our descent into Washington. The whole world looks different from up here, smaller. I understood what she meant. From the air, The boundaries and barriers that seemed so insurmountable on the ground. The divisions between neighborhoods, between social classes, between different kinds of lives, vanished into insignificance. Everything blended together in a continuous tapestry of human existence. The competition was held at the National Academy of Sciences, a grand building with imposing columns and marble floors that echoed with our footsteps. 20 student finalists from across the country gathered in a reception hall, each accompanied by a parent or teacher. Some were clearly from backgrounds similar to mine, wearing carefully selected outfits that strived for professionalism without the price tag of true luxury. Others exuded the easy confidence of privilege, their designer clothes and casual. Mentions of family vacations to Europe, marking them as members of a world I only glimpsed through Westlake's windows. Mom wore her one good dress with quiet dignity. She might not have had the polished appearance of some of the other parents, but her posture was impeccable, her gaze direct and unashamed. I felt a surge of fierce pride walking beside her. The first day consisted of orientation, a tour of the facilities, and a welcome dinner where we met the judges, an impressive array of scientists, entrepreneurs, and educators. I tried to memorize their names and backgrounds, knowing that understanding my audience would be crucial for my presentation. Dr. Eleanor Chen specializes in environmental engineering, I whispered to Mom as we took our seats for dinner. She's the one I really need to impress. Her work on water purification systems is legendary. Mom nodded, taking it all in. Throughout the evening, she listened attentively to the conversations around us, occasionally asking me to explain scientific terms she didn't recognize. Her engagement was another reminder of how much she had sacrificed for me to be here, not just financially, but in all the ways she had supported a path so different from her own. That night in our hotel room, a modest but clean accommodation provided by the competition, Mom helped me lay out my clothes for the next day's preliminary presentation. "The blue blouse, I think," she said, smoothing the fabric. "It brings out your eyes and looks professional." I nodded, too nervous to care much about my appearance. My mind was racing through my presentation, anticipating questions, mentally reviewing data points. "Sophia," Mom said softly, recognizing my anxiety, "come sit with me." I perched on the edge of the bed beside her. "Tomorrow, when you stand in front of those judges, remember who you are," she said, taking my hands in hers. "Not just what you know or what you've created, but who you are at your core." "And who is that?" I asked, suddenly feeling very young and uncertain. Her eyes were warm and sure. "You are the daughter of Carmen Martinez. You come from a long line of strong women who faced obstacles far greater than a panel of scientists. Your grandmother crossed a desert to give your mother a better life. Your mother scrubbed floors so you could reach for the stars. And tomorrow, you will stand tall and speak with the voice of all those who came before you." Her words settled over me like a protective mantle. "I'm scared," I admitted. "What if I freeze? What if they ask something I can't answer?" "Then you'll say, 'I don't know, but I'll find out,'" Mom replied simply. "There's no shame in not knowing everything, Sophia. The shame would be in pretending you do." I nodded, some of my tension easing. Mom had always had this ability to cut through my swirling thoughts and anxieties with simple, grounding wisdom. "Now sleep," she said, kissing my forehead. "Tomorrow needs your best self." The preliminary round the next morning narrowed the 20 finalists down to 10. Each of us had 7 minutes to present our projects, followed by 3 minutes of questioning from the judges. My hands trembled slightly as I set up my display, but once I began speaking, a strange calm descended. This was my element. This was the world I had been building for myself since that first day at the Wilson Institute. A world where ideas mattered more than background, where innovation trumped inheritance. I spoke clearly and confidently about my biodegradable filter system, explaining how its low-cost materials and simple design made it accessible for communities with limited resources. During the questioning, Dr. Chen asked about the filter's longevity in variable pH conditions, a potential weakness I had anticipated and addressed in my latest prototype. My thorough answer seemed to impress her. I caught the slight nod she exchanged with another judge. When the 10 finalists were announced that afternoon, my name was among them. Mom was waiting in the audience, her face illuminated with pride. As soon as I could break away from the other finalists, I rushed to her side. "You were magnificent," she said, embracing me. "So poised, so knowledgeable. The way you answered that question about pH levels, I didn't understand a word of it, but I could tell the judges were impressed." Her enthusiasm made me laugh. "I still have the final round tomorrow," I reminded her. "The competition gets tougher now." "And so do you," she replied with absolute conviction. That evening, the finalists and their guests were treated to a dinner cruise on the Potomac River. The boat glided past illuminated monuments, the Washington Monument and Jefferson Memorial glowing like beacons against the night sky. Most of the other finalists circulated easily, networking with judges and sponsors. I stayed close to Mom, still somewhat uncomfortable in these social settings despite my growing confidence in academic ones. "You should talk to them," Mom encouraged, gently. "This is your chance to make connections." "I'd rather stay with you," I said. "You deserve to enjoy this too." She shook her head. "I am enjoying it, but this isn't about me. This is your moment, Sophia. Your future." With her gentle insistence, I finally approached a small group that included Dr. Chen and 2 other finalists. To my surprise, the conversation flowed more easily than I expected. We discussed our projects, our schools, our aspirations beyond the competition. Dr. Chen asked thoughtful questions about my research at the Wilson Institute, seeming genuinely interested in my experience there. "Mentorship is crucial in scientific development," she commented. "You were fortunate to find Dr. Reeves so early in your journey." I agreed. She saw potential in me when many others didn't. Dr. Chen's gaze was piercing. "Sometimes the most promising talents are found in unexpected places. The challenge for institutions is creating pathways to identify and nurture those talents, regardless of their origin." Her words stayed with me as the evening progressed. Was she speaking generally, or had she somehow intuited my background? Either way, her perspective reinforced what I was beginning to understand through my own experience: that true merit could transcend circumstance, but only when given the opportunity to be seen. The final round of the competition the next day would determine not just the overall winner, but also second and third place positions, each carrying substantial prize money. 10 finalists, 3 winners. The odds were better than they had been at the start, but the competition was formidable. My presentation slot was 7th, which meant I had to sit through 6 other impressive presentations before taking the stage. Each finalist had 12 minutes to present, followed by 8 minutes of questioning from an expanded panel of judges. The scrutiny would be more intense, the questions more probing. I watched the other presentations with a mixture of admiration and anxiety. A project on artificial intelligence applications for early cancer detection. A novel approach to sustainable agriculture using drone technology. Each presentation was polished, each presenter confident and articulate. These were the best young scientific minds in the country, and I was among them. A thought both exhilarating and terrifying. When my turn came, I walked to the podium with my mother's words echoing in my mind. "Remember who you are. The daughter of Carmen Martinez, part of a lineage of strong women who faced obstacles far greater than these." I began my presentation, my voice steady despite the hammering of my heart. The expanded time allowed me to delve deeper into the research behind my filter system, to explain not just how it worked, but why it mattered. How access to clean water remained a fundamental challenge in many parts of the world, and how existing solutions were often too expensive. or technologically complex for the communities that needed them most. Science should serve humanity, I concluded, making eye contact with the judges. Not just those who can afford cutting-edge technology, but everyone. My system isn't the most sophisticated solution, but it's one that can reach the people who need it most. The questioning was rigorous. The judges probed every aspect of my design, from material durability to scalability to potential unintended environmental impacts. I answered as thoroughly as I could, admitting when I wasn't certain, but explaining how I would approach finding the answer. When Dr. Chen asked about the next phase of development if I were to receive funding, I outlined a plan for field testing in partnership with international aid organizations, an aspect of the project I hadn't included in my presentation due to time constraints. Her expression remained neutral, but I thought I detected a glimmer of approval. As I returned to my seat after the presentation, Mom squeezed my hand. "Perfect," she whispered. "Absolutely perfect." The deliberation seemed to take forever. The judges withdrew to a private room while the finalists and their guests waited anxiously in the reception hall. I paced the perimeter of the room, too nervous to engage in the small talk happening around me. "They're announcing the winners alphabetically by project title," one of the other finalists explained as the judges filed back in. "Third place, then second, then first. My project, accessible clean water through biodegradable filtration, would be near the beginning of the alphabet. I would know my fate quickly, for better or worse." The head judge, Dr. Williams, approached the podium. "Before we announce the winners, I want to commend all 10 finalists. The caliber of work we've seen in this competition gives me great hope for the future of science in America." Polite applause rippled through the room. I felt Mom's hand slip into mine, her grip reassuringly firm. Third place, with a prize of $10,000, goes to Artificial Intelligence for Early-Stage Cancer Detection by James Foster. A tall boy from a private school in Massachusetts made his way to the stage, beaming as he accepted his certificate and posed for photographs. His project had been impressive, sophisticated algorithm development far beyond what most high school students could accomplish. Second place, with a prize of $25,000, goes to... I held my breath. Accessible clean water through biodegradable filtration by Sophia Martinez. For a moment, I couldn't move. Second place, $25,000. It wasn't the top prize, but it was life-changing money for Mom and me. And the recognition, being named one of the top 2 young scientists in the country, that was beyond anything I had dared to hope for. Mom gave me a gentle push. "Go, mija. Go." I walked to the stage in a daze, accepting the certificate with trembling hands. Flashbulbs popped as photographers captured the moment. Dr. Chen, standing with the other judges, gave me a subtle nod of acknowledgement. First place went to a project on sustainable agriculture using drone technology. Well-deserved recognition for truly innovative work. As we posed together for final photographs, the 3 winners standing side by side, I felt a complex mix of emotions. Pride in what I had accomplished, gratitude for everyone who had helped me reach this point, and yes, a twinge of disappointment at coming so close to the top prize. But when I looked out at the audience and saw Mom's face, tears streaming unashamedly down her cheeks, her expression radiant with joy and pride, any disappointment vanished. We had done this together. Her sacrifices, my hard work, our shared determination. Second place wasn't a miss. It was a triumph neither of us could have imagined when I first stepped through Westlake's intimidating doors as the janitor's daughter. The reception afterward was a blur of congratulations and business cards. Representatives from universities and research foundations approached me, expressing interest in my work and encouraging me to consider their institutions for undergraduate studies. Dr. Chen herself spent several minutes discussing potential applications for my filter system in regions facing water insecurity. "You have a promising future, Ms. Martinez," she said before moving on. "I'll be watching your progress with interest." When we finally returned to our hotel room that night, Mom and I sat on the edge of the bed, the certificate propped against the lamp on the nightstand, both of us too wired to sleep despite our exhaustion. $25,000, Mom said, shaking her head in wonder. "Do you know what this means?" I nodded. "It means you can cut back your hours, maybe even quit the night job at Westlake." She reached for my hand. "It means options, Sophia. Choices we've never had before." We stayed up late into the night, talking about possibilities that had seemed out of reach just days earlier. A better apartment, a more reliable car for Mom, setting aside money for college expenses not covered by scholarships. "What about you?" I asked as our conversation began to wind down. "Isn't there something you want for yourself? Something that's just for you, not for us?" Mom looked surprised by the question. After a moment of thought, she said, "I've always wanted to take classes at the community college, maybe in business administration or accounting." It was my turn to be surprised. "You never told me that." She shrugged. "There was never time or money for it, but I've always thought, with the right education, I could do more than cleaning. Maybe start a small business someday, something of my own." The simplicity of her dream, so modest compared to the sacrifices she had made for me, brought tears to my eyes. "Then, that's what we'll do. Set aside some of the money for your education." She started to protest, but I cut her off. "This is non-negotiable, Mom. We both get to have dreams. We both get to have futures." After a moment, she nodded, a small smile playing at her lips. "My brilliant, stubborn daughter. When did you get so wise?" "I had a good teacher," I replied, squeezing her hand. Returning to Westlake after the competition was a surreal experience. The school newspaper published a front-page article about my second-place finish, complete with a photograph from the award ceremony. Principal Hargrove called me to his office to personally congratulate me, his manner warmer and more respectful than I had ever experienced. "This is a significant achievement for you and for Westlake," he said, gesturing to the framed article he had already hung on his wall of accomplishments. "The Board of Trustees is quite impressed." I nodded politely, no longer feeling the desperate need for his approval that had once driven me. "Thank you, sir. It was a team effort. I had tremendous support from Mr. Chen and the Wilson Institute." Of course," he agreed quickly. "And we'll certainly want to feature this in our admissions materials for next year. A wonderful example of what Westlake students can accomplish." I resisted the urge to point out that I was still viewed as separate from Westlake students in many ways. Instead, I thanked him again and excused myself, eager to return to the IEI science lab, where Mr. Chen was helping me refine my filter design based on feedback from the competition. The most noticeable change following the competition was in how my classmates regarded me. The overt hostility that had marked my early days at Westlake had gradually diminished over the years, but now it was replaced by something I had never expected: respect. Not universal, certainly. Isabel Crawford and her inner circle still maintained their distance, but palpable nonetheless. Students I barely knew congratulated me in the hallways. Several approached me about joining the research club, including some who had previously dismissed it as too nerdy. Even Tyler Richardson, who had once mocked my mother's occupation to my face, acknowledged me with a nod when we passed in the cafeteria. But the most significant shift came from Abigail Whitman. Following the competition, she sought me out specifically to hear about the experience. "My mom said the advice she gave you really paid off," she said as we walked together after a student council meeting where I had presented a funding request for the research club. "She was impressed with how you incorporated her suggestions." "Her coaching was invaluable," I acknowledged. "Please thank her for me again." Abigail hesitated, then asked, "Would you want to get coffee sometime? I'd love to hear more about your research, and maybe pick your brain about the Wilson Institute. I'm still hoping to connect with their neuroscience department." The invitation, casual, friendly, devoid of charity or obligation, caught me by surprise. This was how normal high school friendships began, I supposed. Not grand gestures, just small openings, tentative bridges between different worlds. "I'd like that," I said, meaning it. Our coffee date the following Saturday marked the beginning of an unexpected friendship. Abigail, I discovered, was more complex than her polished exterior suggested. Beneath the perfect student council president persona was a girl with genuine intellectual curiosity and ambitions that extended beyond the social hierarchy of Westlake. "Everyone expects me to major in communications or business," she confided as we sat in a corner of the cafe. "Follow in my parents' footsteps, but I've always been fascinated by the brain. How it works, why it sometimes doesn't." "Because of your brother?" I asked, recalling rumors about an older Whitman sibling with some kind of cognitive disability. She looked startled, then nodded. "Adam has autism, high functioning, but he struggles with social cues, with change. I've watched him work so hard to navigate a world that isn't designed for minds like his." Her expression softened. "He's brilliant in his own way. Mathematical patterns, music theory. He sees connections no one else does. But our society isn't built to value those kinds of minds." I thought about my own experiences at Westlake. How the school's rigid social structure and unspoken rules had made me feel like an alien observer, never quite fitting the expected mold. "So you want to study neuroscience to understand different kinds of cognition?" I asked. "Exactly," she said, leaning forward eagerly. "Not to fix people like Adam, but to help create a world that better accommodates neurological diversity." She paused. "That probably sounds naive." "No," I said thoughtfully. "It sounds like the kind of science that serves humanity. Not just those who fit neatly into existing systems, but everyone." She smiled, recognizing her own words from my competition presentation echoing back at her. "Exactly." As junior year drew to a close, the changes in our lives accelerated. True to her word, Mom used part of my prize money to cut back her hours, quitting the night shift at Westlake and reducing her daytime hours to part-time. She enrolled in accounting classes at the community college, attending evening sessions, twice a week with a focus and determination that reminded me of my own academic pursuits. We moved to a better apartment, not extravagant, but clean, well-maintained, and importantly, much closer to both Westlake and Mom's remaining job. The reduced commute time alone made a tremendous difference in her energy levels and overall well-being. "You look younger," I told her one evening as we sat on the small balcony of our new home, watching the sunset. "Happier." She smiled, the lines around her eyes crinkling with genuine contentment rather than exhaustion. "I feel younger, and definitely happier." She reached over to squeeze my hand. "You've given me the greatest gift, Sophia. Not just the money, but the reminder that it's never too late to pursue your own dreams." "You gave me that gift first," I reminded her. "Everything I've accomplished started with you believing it was possible." Senior year began with a sense of possibility I had never experienced before. College applications loomed on the horizon, but now with concrete options rather than desperate hopes. The connections I had made through the Young Scientist competition and the Wilson Institute opened doors that would have remained firmly closed without those experiences. Dr. Reeves helped me craft a research portfolio that highlighted not just my achievements, but my ongoing work. My filter system, continuously refined based on feedback from the competition, was now being considered for a pilot program in partnership with an international aid organization. "You should aim high with your applications," Dr. Reeves advised during one of our weekend lab sessions. "Bristol, MIT, Stanford. Your qualifications are competitive for any of them." The idea still seemed surreal, that I, Sophia Martinez, once known only as the janitor's daughter, could now be considered a viable candidate for the most prestigious universities in the country. yet the evidence was undeniable. My academic record was impeccable. My research had been nationally recognized. My letters of recommendation from teachers who had witnessed my journey from outsider to achiever spoke to both my intellectual capabilities and my character. As fall progressed, I balanced my coursework with college applications, ongoing research, and leadership of the now thriving Scientific Research Society. The club had grown to over 40 members, with several project teams working on various research initiatives under my guidance. We had secured regular funding from the school board and established formal mentorship connections with local universities, including the Wilson Institute. My friendship with Abigail deepened as we navigated the college application process together. Though we were applying to different programs, she to neuroscience, I to environmental engineering, we reviewed each other's essays, celebrated acceptances, and commiserated over the inevitable rejections. Briston waitlisted me, she confessed one afternoon as we studied in the library. I thought my alumni connections would guarantee at least an interview. I looked up from my calculus homework, surprised. "I'm sorry, Abigail. That's disappointing." She shrugged, but I could see the hurt beneath her casual demeanor. "It's fine. I still have other options. Just not my top choice." The irony wasn't lost on me, that Abigail, with all her advantages, might be denied entry to a world I was now being actively recruited for. The realization was both satisfying and humbling. Even privilege had its limitations. Even disadvantage could be overcome with enough determination, support, and yes, a measure of good fortune. In December, early decision results began rolling in. I had applied early to Briston University, encouraged by Dr. Reeves and remembering my brief conversation with Dr. Harlow at the Wilson Institute Symposium years earlier. The odds were still long. Briston accepted less than 10% of applicants, but my profile was unique enough to warrant consideration. The email arrived on a Tuesday afternoon as I was leaving chemistry class. "Sophia Martinez, regarding your application to Briston University." My hands trembled so badly I could barely open it. "Dear Ms. Martinez, we are pleased to inform you that you have been accepted to Briston University's class of 2030 under our early decision program." I read the words 3 times before they fully registered. Accepted. To Briston. With a full-ride scholarship as part of their Scientific Leaders Initiative. The culmination of years of hard work, sacrifice, and persistence. I called Mom immediately, my voice breaking as I shared the news. "I knew it," she said, her own voice thick with emotion. "I always knew you could do this, mija." That night, we celebrated with a special dinner in our small apartment. Mom had prepared all my favorites, chile rellenos, rice and beans, fresh tortillas. As we ate, we reminisced about the journey that had brought us to this moment. From my acceptance to Westlake on scholarship, through the difficult early years, to the Wilson Institute opportunity that had changed everything. "Remember when I told you that your father's family thought you wouldn't be worthy of their name?" Mom said, her expression thoughtful. "I wonder what they would think now, seeing you accepted to one of the top universities in the country." I shook my head. "It doesn't matter what they would think. They're not part of our story." Mom smiled. "You're right. Our story belongs to us, to you and me. And it's a good one, isn't it?" "The best," I agreed, raising my glass of sparkling cider. "To us, to new beginnings." "To new beginnings," she echoed, touching her glass to mine. As my final semester at Westlake unfolded, the approaching graduation ceremony took on symbolic significance. It would mark not just the completion of my high school education, but the end of a chapter defined by struggle and otherness. I had entered Westlake as an outsider, marked by my background and my mother's occupation. I would leave it as a scholar and scientist, defined by my achievements and potential. Mom, too, was undergoing a transformation. Her accounting classes were going well. She had a natural aptitude for numbers and detail, and she was already considering specializations for an associate's degree. The reduced work schedule had improved her health visibly. The chronic exhaustion that had been her constant companion for years had finally begun to lift. "I'm proud of you," I told her one evening as she studied for a midterm exam, her textbooks spread across our kitchen table, "for going back to school, for making time for your own dreams." She looked up, seeming startled by the role reversal, the daughter expressing pride in the mother. "Thank you, Sophia. That means more than you know." As graduation approached, the traditional senior activities, prom, senior trip, yearbook, signings, took on a strange new dimension. After years of exclusion from the social fabric of Westlake, I found myself cautiously included. Not at the center, certainly, but no longer firmly on the periphery either. Abigail invited me to join her group for prom, a gathering that included several members of the research club along with her longtime friends. "Nothing formal," she assured me. "Just dinner beforehand and maybe breakfast after. No pressure." The invitation was tempting, a chance to experience the normal high school milestone I had long assumed would pass me by. But there was a complication: the cost. Even with our improved finances, a prom dress, shoes, and all the associated expenses represented a significant investment. When I hesitantly explained this to Abigail, she didn't dismiss my concerns or offer charity. Instead, she proposed a solution. "My cousin left a bunch of dresses at our house when she went to college. She's about your size. Why don't you come over this weekend and see if any of them work for you? If not, no harm done." It was thoughtfully phrased, not a handout, but a practical solution between friends. After some consideration, I agreed. The dress I eventually selected from Abigail's cousin's collection was simpler than most prom attire. A deep blue column with a modest neckline and subtle beading. But it fit well and made me feel elegant rather than out of place. Mom insisted on purchasing new shoes to complement it, a small splurge that seemed to give her as much pleasure as it gave me. "Every girl deserves to feel beautiful at her prom," she said, as I tried on the silver heels she had selected. "Even future scientists who will change the world." Prom itself was a pleasant surprise, not the transcendent experience portrayed in movies, but an enjoyable evening with peers who, if not all friends, were at least respectful acquaintances. I danced, laughed, took photos, participated in the rituals of the American high school experience that had once seemed as foreign to me as another country. Jonathan Park, my study partner turned friend, served as my date, a comfortable arrangement between two academically focused students with no romantic complications. As we swayed awkwardly to a slow song, he mentioned his own college plans, MIT for computer science. "We'll be rivals," he joked. "Bristol versus MIT, the eternal struggle." I smiled. "I think there's room for both of us to succeed." His expression turned serious. "You know, I always admired you, Sophia. Even freshman year when everyone was." He trailed off, perhaps not wanting to reference the less pleasant aspects of my early Westlake experience. "When everyone was treating me like an outsider?" I finished for him. He nodded, looking slightly embarrassed. "I should have done more, said something when people were unkind." "You were kind," I reminded him. "You sat with me in the library sometimes. That mattered." He seemed to consider this. "Still, I wish I'd been braver." I thought about all the small kindnesses and small cruelties that had shaped my years at Westlake. How the smallest gesture, a seat offered in the cafeteria, a partner chosen for lab work, a smile in a hallway, could feel monumental when you existed on the margins. "We all do the best we can with what we understand at the time," I said finally. "I think that's all anyone can really ask." In the weeks leading up to graduation, our apartment filled with evidence of dual transitions. My Bristol acceptance package, scholarship information, and orientation materials occupied one corner of the living room. Mom's community college textbooks, and carefully organized notes filled another. Two paths forward, intersecting but distinct. The morning of graduation dawned clear and warm. As I put on my white graduation robe and carefully positioned my honor cords, gold for academic excellence, blue for science, silver for community service, I thought about all that had transpired since that first nervous day at Westlake. The challenges, the victories, the moments of despair and triumph. How much I had changed, and how much I had remained essentially myself throughout. Mom wore her best outfit, a new navy suit she had purchased for the occasion, simple but elegant. Her hair was styled, her makeup subtle but flattering. Looking at her, I saw not just my mother, but a woman coming into her own power, embracing her own potential just as I was embracing mine. "You look beautiful," I told her as we prepared to leave for the ceremony. "So do you, mija," she replied, straightening my honor cords with pride. "My distinguished graduate." We took a rideshare to the ceremony, a small luxury that would have been unthinkable in our previous circumstances. As we approached Westlake's campus, I felt a curious mixture of emotions: nostalgia for what was ending, excitement for what lay ahead, and a deep, abiding gratitude for the journey that had brought me to this moment. The graduation ceremony was held on Westlake's immaculate front lawn, white chairs arranged in neat rows before a flower-bedecked stage. Families filled the audience section, many having arrived hours early to secure prime viewing positions. As a scholarship student whose last name began with M, I would be seated in the middle of the graduates, neither at the front nor the back. Mom and I parted at the student check-in area, she to find her seat in the audience, I to join my classmates, in the staging area. Before she left, she hugged me tightly. "Remember," she whispered, "no matter what happens today, no matter who says what or how they look at you, you have earned this moment. This is yours." I nodded, squeezing her back. "Ours," I corrected. "This is ours." The morning of graduation arrived with golden sunshine and a gentle breeze, perfect weather for the outdoor ceremony. I stood before the mirror in our modest apartment, adjusting my white graduation gown, arranging the colorful honor cords draped around my neck: gold for academic excellence, blue for science, silver for community service, tangible symbols of 4 years of relentless work and determination. "You look beautiful, mija." Mom appeared in the doorway, already dressed in her new navy suit, a recent purchase she'd saved for especially for this day. Her hair was neatly styled, her makeup subtle but elegant. Gone was the perpetual exhaustion that had shadowed her features for so long. The reduced work hours and her community college classes had brought a new vibrancy to her face. "So do you," I replied, feeling a swell of pride. This woman who had scrubbed floors and emptied trash while others slept, who had endured invisibility and disrespect for years, stood before me with the quiet dignity of someone who knew her true worth. We shared a simple breakfast, both too nervous to eat much, then called a rideshare to take us to Westlake, a small luxury unthinkable just 2 years earlier. As the car approached the sprawling campus with its manicured lawns and historic buildings, I felt a curious mixture of emotions. This place had been both battlefield and proving ground, where I'd been labeled and dismissed, then gradually recognized for my achievements rather than my background. "Remember," Mom said quietly as we prepared to separate, me to the staging area with the other graduates, she to find her seat in the audience. "No matter what anyone says or how they look at you today, you've earned this moment. This is yours." I hugged her tightly. "Ours," I corrected. "This is ours." The staging area hummed with excitement. My classmates clustered in animated groups, taking selfies, adjusting each other's caps, reminiscing about shared experiences. I moved among them with a sense of detachment, connected yet separate, as I had been throughout my Westlake years. Abigail spotted me and waved, breaking away from her friends to join me. Our unexpected friendship, still new but genuine, had been one of the surprising gifts of senior year. "Can you believe we're finally done?" she asked, her eyes bright with excitement. 4 years gone in a flash. "Sometimes it felt like forever," I admitted with a small smile. She nodded, understanding the unspoken weight behind my words. "You're going to kill it with your speech." The perfect final statement. My valedictorian speech had been carefully crafted, reviewed, and approved by the administration. Safe, appropriate words about journeys and futures, containing nothing that would disrupt the carefully maintained Westlake image. Before I could respond, Principal Hargrove appeared, his face tense with concern. "Ms. Martinez, there's been a situation with your mother." My heart plummeted. "What happened? Is she okay?" "She's fine," he assured quickly. "Just a ouchy misunderstanding about seating arrangements. The Crawfords seem to have taken issue with her presence in the family section." The Crawfords. Of course. Isabel's wealthy, influential parents, who embodied everything exclusive and elitist about Westlake. "Where is she now?" I asked, my voice dangerously calm. Mrs. Blackwell took her to her office to resolve the situation. Without another word, I turned and walked toward the administrative building, ignoring Principal Hargrove's protests about the ceremony starting soon. Inside Mrs. Blackwell's office, I found Mom sitting rigidly in a visitor's chair while the history teacher offered a glass of water. "What happened?" I demanded, moving immediately to Mom's side. Mrs. Blackwell answered when Mom hesitated. Mrs. Crawford suggested that custodial staff should observe from the side areas, not the main. Parent seating. The familiar anger rose in me, the same anger I'd suppressed countless times throughout my Westlake years for the sake of survival. "I'm taking you back out there," I said firmly to Mom. "You're sitting front and center to watch me graduate." Mom shook her head slightly. "It's not worth creating a scene, Mija. Not today." "Actually," Mrs. Blackwell interrupted, reaching into her desk, "I think I have a solution." She withdrew an envelope and handed it to Mom. "Reserved seating tickets for the front row, usually for board members and special guests." Her eyes met Mom's with genuine respect. "I think the valedictorian's mother certainly qualifies as a special guest." 20 minutes later, the graduation march began. As I processed across the immaculate lawn with my classmates, my eyes found Mom exactly where Mrs. Blackwell had promised. Front row, center, her posture dignified despite the whispers and stares from the wealthy families surrounding her. Our eyes met briefly, and she gave me a small, proud nod that straightened my spine and lifted my chin. The ceremony proceeded as planned through the welcome addresses and initial awards. When Principal Hargrove called me forward as valedictorian, a polite applause rippled through the audience. I approached the podium, my approved speech in hand, and looked out at the sea of faces before me. My gaze found Mom, then drifted to the Crawfords several rows back, their expressions cold and dismissive. I looked at my fellow graduates, some who had tormented me, others who had simply pretended I didn't exist, and a few who had shown small kindnesses that mattered more than they knew. I set aside my prepared remarks. 4 years ago, I entered Westlake as a scholarship student, the daughter of a custodial engineer. Yes, the same woman some of you asked to leave the parent seating area less than an hour ago. A ripple of shocked whispers swept through the audience. Principal Hargrove shifted uncomfortably on stage behind me. For 4 years, I navigated these halls as the janitor's daughter. I heard the whispers. I felt the judgment. I was relegated to the margins of a community that prides itself on values like excellence, integrity, and respect. I paused, looking directly at the Crawford family. But I also found unexpected allies. Teachers who saw beyond my background to recognize my potential. Peers who eventually moved past stereotypes to see me as an individual. And most importantly, I had my mother, A woman whose dignity, determination, and unconditional support taught me more about true success than any classroom ever could. Turning to my classmates, I continued. Many of you will enter prestigious universities where you'll continue to move through spaces designed for people with your background and resources, but some of you will encounter spaces where you are the outsider. When that happens, remember this. Your worth isn't determined by how others see you, but by what you know about yourself. I addressed the broader audience again, my voice strengthening with each word. To the parents here today, your children have received an excellent education. But the true measure of that education isn't in the knowledge they've accumulated, but in how they use it. Will they perpetuate systems of exclusion, or will they work to create more equitable communities? Finally, I turned to Mom, no longer caring about the administration's approval or the audience's reaction. To my mother, Carmen Martinez, this achievement is as much yours as it is mine. Every late night you spent cleaning these halls made my education possible. I stand here today not despite being your daughter, but because I am your daughter. And that is my greatest honor. A heavy silence followed my final words. Then, from somewhere in the back, a single person began to clap. Another joined. Then, another. The applause built slowly but swelled into a wave that washed over the ceremony. Not everyone participated. The Crawfords and several other families sat with stony expressions. But enough rose to their feet that it became an undeniable statement. The remainder of the ceremony passed in a blur. When it concluded, I made my way directly to Mom, who waited at the edge of the seating area. "I'm sorry if I embarrassed you," I said quickly. "I just couldn't stay silent after what happened." "Embarrassed?" Her eyes shone with fierce pride. "Never. You spoke our truth. I have never been prouder." As we embraced, I noticed a commotion near the main driveway. A line of luxury vehicles dropped off and picked up families. But at the end of the line sat something unexpected. A gleaming black stretch limousine, longer and more impressive than any other car present. The uniformed driver stood beside the open door, scanning the crowd. "Mrs. Martinez? Ms. Martinez?" he called, spotting us. "Your car is ready." Confusion washed over me. We hadn't arranged for a limousine. Mom's expression mirrored my bewilderment as the driver approached us. "There must be some mistake," she told him. "Carmen and Sophia Martinez?" he confirmed, consulting his tablet. "Westlake graduation to the peninsula for lunch, then home? I have the right names." "But we didn't?" "Arrange this," Mom insisted. The driver lowered his voice. "The reservation was made by a Mr. Ramon Velez. He left this for you." He handed Mom a sealed envelope. Ramon Velez, my father's name. The man who had walked away before I was born, who had offered money in exchange for our silence and absence from his life. Mom's hand trembled slightly as she opened the envelope and read the note inside. Without a word, she passed it to me. "Carmen, I have followed Sophia's achievements from afar. The science competition, the Briston acceptance. Today's graduation, as valedictorian. You were right all those years ago and I was wrong, terribly wrong. This gesture cannot make up for my absence, but perhaps it can serve as an acknowledgement of what you and our daughter have accomplished despite it, and despite the obstacles I know she has faced at Westlake. The reservation at the peninsula is under your name. Everything has been arranged." With deep respect and regret, Ramon I looked up, stunned. "He's been watching us? All this time?" Mom nodded slowly. "It seems so." I glanced around, suddenly aware that we had become the center of attention. Students and parents openly stared at the janitor's daughter and the janitor herself, standing beside a limousine that outshone even the Crawfords' luxury SUV. "What do you want to do?" I asked Mom quietly. She studied the onlookers, then turned to me with a slow, dignified smile. I think that after 4 years of cleaning this school while being treated as invisible, after watching you fight for recognition and respect." She paused, straightening her shoulders. "I think we deserve to leave in style." She turned to the driver. "We would be delighted to accept the reservation." As we settled into the plush leather interior, the driver closed the door behind us. Mom discovered another envelope tucked beside a small flower arrangement. Inside was a check that made both our eyes widen, $100,000, with a note reading simply, "For Sophia's graduate studies or other educational needs." No strings attached. "We'll discuss this later," Mom said softly, carefully returning the check to its envelope. "In private." As the limousine pulled away from Westlake's grounds, I watched through tinted windows as my former classmates and their families stared after us. The Crawfords stood frozen in disbelief. Principal Hargrove's expression was unreadable. Mrs. Blackwell offered a small smile of approval. Abigail gave an enthusiastic thumbs up. "Are you okay?" I asked Mom, noticing her pensive expression. "I'm thinking about how life comes full circle sometimes," she replied. 15 years ago, your father offered money to make us disappear. Now he offers it as acknowledgement of our worth." The limousine glided smoothly through the streets toward the luxury hotel where lunch awaited. "So," Mom said, her tone lightening, "the Peninsula. I've cleaned hotel rooms for years, but I've never dined at a 5-star hotel. What should we order?" I laughed, feeling the tension of the day dissolve. "Everything. Let's order everything. On the menu." "And dessert," she added with a grin. "Definitely dessert." As we continued toward our unexpected celebration, I reflected on our journey. From a frightened freshman labeled as the janitor's daughter, to the confident graduate bound for a prestigious university. From a mother working 2 exhausting jobs to a woman pursuing her own education and dreams. The story wasn't perfect. My father's gesture didn't erase years of absence. The respect I'd earned at Westlake didn't transform a system designed to perpetuate privilege. The challenges ahead would require the same determination we'd always needed. But as the limousine carried us forward, I understood that our story had its own kind of perfection. It was real, it was honest, it was ours. "They called me the janitor's daughter for 4 years," I said softly, as if that was something to be ashamed of. Mom's hand found mine, her grip warm and strong. And look at us now. The limousine turned onto Michigan Avenue, sunlight glinting off its polished surface as it carried the janitor and the janitor's daughter toward a future neither could have imagined 4 years earlier. A future they had, built together, step by determined step. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.